Today I am not going to be doing food. I'm instead going to take you behind the kitchen here and kind of show you the ins and outs of the kitchen because that's a lot of questions I get. I put a few flowers together first, so I thought I'd finish that up. You know, I get so many questions on, now that I'm 3 or 4 years into my kitchen after it's been remodeled, do I like everything? So many of you watch videos on the food I'm making and want to know, what is behind there? What's in the different, where do you keep things? How do you like to keep your kitchen organized? We're gonna start over here where I'm working, which is with the sink. And I like a big sink. So it's just a nice wide sink and it has deepness, which I really wanted, because previously in the smaller kitchen that was here, I had a sink that was very tiny and very shallow, and you could not fit in big pots. You couldn't put in big flowers like this. I will below this make sure I tag a post on my website where I originally have everything linked in the kitchen, and most things I believe still work. But this has different little levels you can use, and you can take things in and out, and it just works really well for me. It's a stainless steel sink. For me, that's all purpose, and I've really liked it. But anyway, I have my flowers put together. I have made it a goal, since I have a yard, since I have so many flowers, to get them in as often as I can and enjoy them all throughout the summer. Because in Iowa, which is where I live here, I live in my family's farmhouse in Iowa, but in the winter we get very cold. It can be very unlifelike, so you gotta enjoy it when you have it. So since we're going behind the scenes, behind the curtain today, and what I'm doing is taking all the different questions I see come in through messages, through comments, and I'm trying to go through them mentally and show you the things I've seen that I asked. So this is not a show-off time. This is literally a time for me to say, this is how I use my kitchen. It is a work kitchen. It is a workhorse. I use this kitchen daily and I use it hard. I can, I preserve, I freeze, I make videos all the time. So this kitchen gets hard use, and it does show wear that you just don't maybe see on a video, but up close, you do. So first, when you're coming back here, this is where I'm standing every time I do a video. You're looking at me from the dining room into the kitchen. And so back here, I'm gonna show you the things I grab that you don't see because it's usually off camera. But right here in this big deep drawer, I have 2 drawers of my pots and pans. And they're easy to grab and just place on the stove as soon as I need them. But all of them, I do have that peg system in there. Is it absolutely essential? No, but is it nice because it does somewhat organize? Yeah, but you don't need it. It's nice just because if you pull it out really hard, they don't clank around kind of as much. Those pegs keep them in place. I kind of break my kitchen up into 2 sides. I say a baking side and the more cooking side. So I have a set of mixing bowls over here that I can easily grab if I'm right here and be working. And then I have most of my pots and pans. And then I have some larger ones down below, like more the stock pot size and some colanders. You know, it's one of those things, no matter the kitchen, no matter the size, it's hardly ever the right size. You know, you always think of things, oh, I could have had more space, because we could all have more space. But those work really well here. Of course, it has trash can in my compost bucket back here that I fill up almost daily and take out to my compost pile. But around here on the little corner of the island, it was a really essential part for me, and that was where I hang my skillets. So I have lots of cast iron skillets that I keep in here, but I also want these to be easy to grab because I grab them on the daily, if not many times a week. And so I have the different size skillets here that are hanging that I can grab. They drip and it doesn't matter because I have the same stone countertop down here. The countertop is a quartz and I really like it. I'm gonna say no matter what countertop you get, there's pros and cons of both. Quartz, it's not perfect. Marble, it's not perfect. I actually just put marble in at my mom's. I have quartz, there's pros and cons of both. So that's how we are. Now over here, you see this a lot of times, but you don't see it coming from this way on video. So I thought I would show you over here what's all going on. And the big thing is on this side was a really important step for me, which was my spices. When you can see, I line them up even beyond what fits in here. And I even have some overflow beyond this. Now these, I try to make sure I go through once a year, which this one I need more coriander. I go through it once a year just because spices they can lose potency. So I try not to buy too much in bulk because I feel they lose flavor if I don't get them used up. I like to buy sometimes just bulk bags, but in small amounts, and just refill these containers, but not big amounts of spices. It's nice to have them right here. And then down below, I have a lot of my excess vinegars and oils. The different ones I'm gonna grab, but I do keep ones I grab the quickest and the most right here. So back, I have little alcoves that I can hide things. And I have 2 oil bottles and 2 salt cellars, and I have an olive oil that I always use, and then more of a neutral oil, which for me is usually avocado, but it can be whatever. Above here is overflow things of different spices I might grab. I love these cast iron spice grinders. You put all the whole spices down in there, you put this heavy grinder on top and you just do it by hand. So I use things like that, and I keep my ghee up here because ghee, as long as you use it within like 4 months, you don't have to keep refrigerated. And I use ghee all the time. It's clarified butter. It's actually super healthy if you get good grass-fed ghee. It has omegas in it, but it has so much of that great, rich, buttery flavor. So now let's talk about the stove. I use a 36-inch range, so it has 6 burners. They're high output, meaning very strong burners. And I do admit, to me, an investment I will make time and again is in a good range, because that heat manipulation to get a high sear or a nice low simmer or just keep warm is super important to me. But also I like how rugged it is and how it can really use, I can do my canning with big pressure canners, water bath canners, jam making, all that can work so well on here. Now the one thing I feel like there's always a little bit of tension or controversy over is a pot filler. Is it a luxury? Absolutely. Is it needed? No. My sink is right behind me, but I use this so often. It more is just for ease and nice to have. So anytime I have a big stock pot, I use this. It just cuts a little bit of time and it just makes it easier. I actually find I do use it too for filling up like water bottles or things, depending what I'm doing over here at the sink. So since I don't have a small prep sink, it's just nice to have that over here. Now over here I will keep utensils I use all the time too. I try to mostly use wood utensils, not as many metal utensils. I have a few back here if I need them, but wood or just silicone spatulas are my go-to. So all around here are those kinds of things that I use. I have a few utensils right here that you're gonna see me use. One, you guys ask all the time, is a microplane grater. This is what I use for things like Parmesan cheese, citrus zest, any of those things I'm gonna just have right here ready to go. And so you don't see me pull them out on videos because obviously for a video, I need to have things at the ready. I have a few extra knives over here. These are ones I maybe don't use all the time, but some of them are a little bit more specialty that I like to have, like boning knives, bread knives that I don't use quite as often. Some of the kitchen is obviously for looks. And a big thing for me was, I'm a huge collector. I love antiques. I try to use them in my life. These are all brownware or yellowware antique. So there's a style called milk pan, and that's, as you can see, because it has the shape of a milk pan. I have both yellow and brown of those. And then there's banded yellowware, which is like these. Now you can find graduated sets. Those are hard to find in complete sets. So instead what I use, I kind of mix and match sets. Now, I don't necessarily use those for, I will serve maybe chips in them or something like that. Certain times you have to be somewhat worried about the glaze of them, so I don't kind of use them for just any everyday thing or mixing with metal utensils in them. So as we move down the line, pretty simple. Obviously a dishwasher. It's panel ready, which means it's hidden, but it's here. Things like, some tin foil. I try not to use plastic wrap, but once in a while I do need to. I love beeswrap because it's reusable and it works really well. Kind of just lids that when I open up my home canned goods, I can put a lid on and put it in the fridge. Those things are things I use often. Obviously a big silverware drawer, and this is where the knives I use all the time in a video are gonna be. I love Shun knives. I think they keep a great sharp edge. I like the ease of them and they feel comfortable in my hand. Anytime you're gonna use a knife, anytime you wanna find one that's good for you, I love the Santoku. You wanna just find one that's comfortable because that's when you're gonna feel comfortable holding it. You wanna feel like you have control of it, and that's what's super important. So above this, a lot of people have seen, especially when I did my original video in this kitchen showing a tour, I like to have flipper doors on these upper cabinets. And this is then, so I did this in 2019. I decided all this and designed it. And this was a choice because I could keep them open. So if I'm having people over and want to just have a buffet or a grab and go type thing, I can have these open, tell people grab a plate or grab a glass or have coffee station, whatever it is. They can grab it and go. Silverware is right here too. So it's kind of a central station. And if I want it to feel more put together, cleaned up, I can just come over and close it. So these ceilings are 9 foot. I did utilize up here for things like I don't use all the time. So a carafe, some extra glassware, stemware, things like that. Let's go into what I call the baking side. While I call this the baking room, it's not a separate room. It's all one room, but I did delineate it with a big cased opening into the kitchen. Originally, this was not part of the kitchen. It was like part of a breezeway that goes to my garage. So I extended the kitchen slightly years ago to give me a little bit more space. And it's really nice, one, for video, since this is somewhat of a job for me. Not somewhat, this is a job for me. That means that I need to have the space, need to have places to put things, and so utilize even a second oven at times, and there are times where both of them are going full throttle. So over here's what I call my baking side, because if we come over here, we have the same set of flipper doors. that I can push in. So if I need to, I can use my mixer within here or my blender within here. I have all my flours, my sugars are all in here, my chocolate chips, my scales, you know, frosting items and all the different sugars and things like that, or colorings even if I need them, are in here. So it's just a nice baking section. Now for a video, I'll take that mixer out, put it on the island and obviously use it like that. I even have things like down here, like baking spices more I keep over here. So like my cinnamons, my nutmeg, you know, all those kind of warming spices that we use more in sweet things, along with some cookie cutters are up here, others are in other places, because I don't have room for all of them. And then I delineate my utensils like that too. So over in here, I'll have my, you know, my measuring cups for dry measure. I'll have bench scrapers and spatulas for offset spatulas for frosting maybe. I'll have small whisks. This I use every day. I will grab this over a big whisk almost any time. Now, if I'm whipping whipped cream by hand, no, I will use a big one. But anything else, this is small whisks. We underestimate them. And then always a Thermopin. It's the best thermometer you were gonna use. I use it for candy making. I use it to check meat, you know, any of that. This is essential. Even bread, I actually use this on most breads. For softer breads, I like it like 190 to up to 200 degrees. For crusty artisan bread, like 210 degrees, things like that. So when we're working around here, the one thing I know a lot of people notice is my copper wall, so let's talk about it. What this is all vintage or antique copper that I collect, and yes, you can use it. So a lot of antique copper, when you get it, you're gonna see that it has been really used and the inside might look bad. So you have to make sure it has a nice tin lining, because certain foods definitely need copper to be lined. So when I'm uncertain, I don't use some of them that need to be re-tinned, and I can show you when they are re-tinned, they look much different. So this is one that hasn't been used near as much. It's like almost brand new from the tinning. It's an antique kettle though, it's a nice saucepan. But after you use a fresh tinned item, it will get dull, and that's normal. But when it starts rubbing the tin off on food, you don't want that. So that is when you would need to have them re-tinned. So certain antique ones I need to have redone, and it's an investment. So I only do ones I use all the time. Over in here, I did, even though my drawers in this island, I have big drawers on the back side, but there was a little bit of room. So I still put a little drawer on this side too. And so you can utilize it. It's a very short drawer, but this is where I have all my different, why do I have, you know, the question really is, why do I have so many rolling pins? But also I will use them. This is my go-to. I like a flat, I don't, you know, I grew up using, obviously not this one, but a smooth rolling pin like this with ball bearings that you go. But once I switched to one like this, it's so much easier, and I really do like it better. You know, for me, a kitchen has to work really hard. Obviously, I want it to look good, but you know, keeping things at the ready like citrus, because whether I'm testing a recipe, making recipes for videos, or just on a nightly basis cooking, I use citrus all the time for vinaigrettes, for brightening different things, for soups, anything. So I will use antique items to elevate them, and just, I love to use my collections. So this is like a little antique pie plate in ironstone that I love, or a nice colander and stoneware to keep your tomatoes from the garden, which I'm gonna do a recipe tomorrow. I'm gonna film it using these. So all those items are what, for me, make a kitchen feel comfortable. I like to have items around that I love. I like to have my antique cutting boards or an antique painting, but then I like to have it be extremely utilitarian, where I can use everything really easily and I can get to it really easily, because that to me is super important. So when I say I need a kitchen to be usable, I need to know I have places for my pots and pans easily that I can grab, throw over there when I need them. I need to have it be accessible for videos, so I have a big space to work with and can be filmed with everything laid out. So I hope this gives a little bit more insight into what the kitchen is like, where things are placed, how I use them. I didn't go through each exact cabinet, but I think you get the idea that it's all here. Obviously, I didn't really talk about the fridge. It's back there too, behind a panel, so you can't always see it, but it houses everything it needs. One question I have gotten is, do you have a fridge? And it's like, oh, please. Yes, we need a fridge. I think it's always interesting just to see how other people put their kitchen together, just because we all have our own method and way, and that's the point. It needs to work for you. Hope it answered some questions. Hope it got to the point on what some people were wondering, but don't worry, there'll always be more. And if you want to see what I use this kitchen for, you can always check my website, wiseguy.com, and see my recipe videos and all my other videos that usually take place right in here.